My darlings, I bet you can't believe it. Oh no, she's at it again. But I'm so excited. Today, as I mentioned yesterday to you all, is VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. And for you older ones who've learnt about the Second World War, you know that that's when we remember that we finally finished fighting the Second World War in Europe. But I've been looking in the things that were Bee's that we found in the loft, and we'd put away a couple of suitcases of all sorts of papers that she'd kept through her whole life, actually. And I've actually found, I've found newspapers from the time of Winston Churchill, who was our Prime Minister. And here is the picture of the King and the Queen. This is Winston Churchill, the King and the Queen, and the princesses. One, of course, is Queen Elizabeth now, and Princess Margaret, her sister, and that was VE Day in 1945. And here, this picture, here's Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister. Here he is, looking at some of the awful wreckage that was left after bombings in London in 1940. This is some of the devastation. And for you children, that means just the buildings were just all flattened and left as rubble and rubbish. There were no houses or buildings left in this area around London. And here is another one. This is Winston Churchill here, and he's with some troops during the war. More pictures, lots for you to look at when we get past having to do our social isolating. Now, my parents, my mummy and daddy, were only young when the war started. My mother was 8 and my father was 9. Well, of course, some of you are 8 and 9, or you're going to shortly be 8 in Ben's case. And you will know that, you know, things that go on around you can be a bit scary. Lots of good things too. But for children at that time, it was really quite scary. And they had to have very different sort of lives. And we're having to live with very different sort of lives just at the moment. But I know you've seen this on my shelves. This is Bee's teddy bear. Now this teddy bear actually lived through the war with Bee. He's filled with straw, and the straw's coming out a bit, can you see? And his fur is all coming off because he's terribly old, but he lived through the war. And you will have things now that are quite precious that you could maybe take photographs of, you could draw pictures of, you could write yourselves a diary about what it's like living at the moment when we're not allowed to go to school and see our friends. But in years to come, your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren might want to hear all about this time when we had to stay indoors, stay at home, and not see our friends and families and not go to school. And that makes history. History is fascinating. And I'm so pleased that Bee has kept these papers. They're terribly, terribly old. But some of them, of course, are actually 75 years old. Because today we're remembering those people from 75 years ago who fought for our country in the war. And today, our heroes are doctors and nurses and all the people that keep our hospitals running, because they are busy saving lives in a completely different way. And you know that I believe in God and that I pray. That means I chat to God. I chat to God all the time, actually, just like I chat to you. And so today, along with hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people around the world, we're thanking God for an end to that terrible, terrible war. And we're also thanking God that he's helping us to cope with these difficult times that we're in just at the moment. So, isn't he cute? I wonder if your teddies will be around in 75 years' time for you to show to your children and grandchildren. Keep records of everything. It's so fascinating. People want to know all about your childhood when you're older. So, love you all loads, and see you all eventually when we get through this. But today's a special day. Think about it some way in your heart, even if you didn't get out for the 2 minutes silence today at 11 o'clock. You can have a silent moment. Perhaps when you're going to have your lunch or something, you could just all sit together and think, aren't we lucky? Aren't we fortunate? Just with the things that we have, we can be grateful. So, love you all loads. Bye.